So during this session, let's talk about those important things called nappies. Yes, there is sometimes a trend to bring your baby up nappy free, so I'm not going to go into that. I just think it adds a whole lot of work to something that you shouldn't be working that hard on. And therefore we have nappies we can put on our baby's bottom. I will talk about disposables as well as the new modern cloth nappies. So when we look at the choice between disposable and reusable, what I'm going to suggest to you is that you start off with disposable nappies. You know, especially if this is your first baby, you haven't really worked out yet what your own routine is going to be like, you haven't got used to things. And honestly, to start with modern cloth nappies right as a newborn, I just think is an added thing that doesn't need to be added onto the concern and the stress that you have. And yes, once you have your baby and it's maybe 3 or 4 months down the line and you feel a little bit more confident with it, you can always investigate the modern cloth nappies. So I usually suggest have some newborn nappies on standby as disposables, and then we will look into what to do with modern cloth nappies. Now, when it comes to brands, there are just so many choices on the market. When I started to look into this to do this presentation, I could not believe how many brands of nappies there are out there. I eventually had 16. And honestly, by the time I'd looked through all the common ones, such as the Huggies and the Baby Love and Tushies, and then the one that you can find at Coles, Rascal and Friends, obviously Mamiya, which is the LD nappy, and so on and so on. I just ended up just not realizing how much choice there is as far as a nappy is concerned. And really, I think we should be able to get samples from each of these companies and then make a choice as to which one you find works the best for you. Yes, we do have some situations where, you know, maybe you're concerned about the environment and would prefer to use something like a bamboo nappy, which is disposable and easily disposable. But we also know that the other nappies, such as Huggies, for example, are a lot more absorbent. And the reason why they're absorbent is because they have a powder on the inside that will turn to gel when it gets wet, and that's what keeps the moisture away from your baby. And we do know that obviously you need the right size for your baby, and most newborn babies will go into the newborn size, which is the number 1, which is up to 5 kilos. And this is where we look at the fit, the absorbency, the material that it's made from, the cost, and also obviously any leakage that you get. Now, in the Newborn Essentials course, I have made sure to show you how to put a nappy onto a baby and also how to clean boys and girls, because I find this is so important to be able to do that. So look through that and consider subscribing so that you can go through that particular course as well. Now, when it comes to the rest of it, we know that we're going to use at least around about 8 to 12 disposable nappies in a 24-hour period for a newborn baby. And that's because, yes, they wee a lot, but they also poo a lot. They pretty much poo at most of their feeds. And so therefore you have to change pooey nappies. And you might just have changed a nappy and you thought that you got all the poo, and as soon as you put the clean nappy on under the bum, they poo some more. So, and this is where we know quantity-wise that you will use more nappies than the times that you're feeding the baby, because they will have these, you know, little oopses every now and again into the clean nappy that you've just put on their bum. So it is, that's more or less what I would say to budget for. So I would make sure that you've got that amount of nappies, and if you want to stock them up, work this out for a daily use and have about at least, you know, 2 to 3 weeks of these nappies available for you. And once you find that the nappy starts getting too short this way and it starts getting difficult to close it up this way, that's when it's time to go into the next size nappy. And sometimes it's trial and error. You know, somebody might find that this particular brand works better for them, and that particular brand works better for a boy than it does for a girl. It's really dependent on your baby and the fit on your baby that is going to determine which nappies you find are the best. And that's why I don't think there's anything wrong with approaching the companies and asking them for samples so that you can trial 1 or 2 nappies instead of buying a whole packet and then realizing that this particular nappy doesn't fit well in your baby. So now, of course, we do have the topic of modern cloth nappies. And really, this is just as much of a minefield to attend to as what it is to choose disposable nappies. But because there's a more of a cash outlay, this is another thing that you need to research really carefully. And when I started researching again, oh my gosh, there are so many companies that are making these modern cloth nappies. You know, My Little Gum Nuts, Hippopotamus, Econaps, there's Designer Bums and Crackerdacks. I mean, these names are just amazing. Bear and Boho, you know, there's plenty of them out there. And I really cannot give you a recommendation because I don't know too much about these modern cloth nappies. I've had to educate myself because my children both grew up just in normal disposables because that's all we had available to us. My brothers, who are much younger than me, I remember them going into just the normal old-fashioned cloth nappies that we had to fold. And I've got a couple of, really good stories about how, my mum was emptying one of the nappies that had poo in it in the toilet, and that disappeared down the drain. And my other brother, drank some of the nappy sand that had dirty nappies in it. And that's been my experience is with those either older cloth nappies, because when I started nursing, that's what we used for the babies too. But then I only really used disposables for my babies because we didn't have this kind of stuff around. So really, I'm going to say to you again, the fit, absorbency, and the cost is going to be a big issue for you, and making sure that you find what is right for you and your baby. So again, you might want to buy just 1 or 2 samples to do your research as to what is going to go into this. And I do know that they will sell them in smaller packs so that you can then decide what it is that you want to do. You can get a refund from your council because you're not adding to the waste that they're having to remove. So you can find out about that. Now, I really find that it's important again to do your research. So MCN stands for Modern Cloth Nappies. And I'm going to suggest that you look around for resources. You will have friends that might be using these nappies, but then also go onto Facebook and look up these particular groups. They are usually run by mums. They're not run by companies. And therefore, the mums would have trialed and errored a lot of the different brands and can give you advice along this line. They will also help you tremendously with cleaning these nappies and how to do, for example, if you buy secondhand nappies, how do you do what they call a strip wash? And there's lots of other hints and tips that they will come up with as well. So I really think it's important to join these groups and to be able to have a look around and see what is it that they suggest. And say most of them are on Facebook. I'm sure that on Instagram you can find recommendations as well. And they will help you even how to approach your council. So when you do buy modern cloth nappies, make sure that you get an invoice from them, because that's going to be part of what you're going to need to produce to your council to be able to justify that you can have a refund on some of those nappies because you're not contributing to the waste that they need to collect. So, some of the councils will give you a certain value back, some of them will give you a certain percentage back. And if your council doesn't, we'll start the process of saying to them, look, other councils are doing this. How about you come on board as well? Now, when it comes to wipes, I decided not even to look at how many brands were out there. So I just used Johnson & Johnson for a picture, but just know that there are plenty other wipes that are out there and plenty other brands. And often you get given gifts of these anyway. So use up what you get given so that you can then find what works best for you. But now, as for nappies, there's also a reusable wipe system. And I think this works really well. This is a system called Cheeky Wipes. And what you have here, a tub for clean wipes and then a tub for dirty wipes. And so therefore you fill this pot with water and a little bit of essential oils, and then you use your wipes. And then inside the dirty container, you've got water and some tea tree oil, and you soak the old ones in there. And then that goes into the wash. If you go out and about, you can then take these bags with you, which is one for clean and one for dirty. So this is a really great little system. But of course, if you don't want to lay out for a system like this and you're not quite sure if you're going to like this, you can always look at doing your own thing. And therefore, you would purchase some wipes. And these can be wipes just from anywhere, as long as they're sort of terry toweling, or else, like, for example, Harker make the cotton ones. And these are really great because with reusable wipes, they actually wipe off a lot more of the dirt and poo than do a disposable wipe. And so you can wipe and then fold it up and then wipe again. So you don't end up using that many anyway. And for example, if you have any reusable container, you can even use a Tupperware container or one of these old disposable wipe containers. You can just decorate it if you want to, make it look nice. And you've got one for your clean ones, one for your dirty ones, and then you've got your own system going anyway. And then when you go out and about, there are other ways of getting, for example, bags that you can take with. If you have one of these bags from your disposable wipes, you can use those for clean wipes. And then you can have either a silicone bag and go online and just get some wet bags. And this has got your own system going, so it's not difficult. And this is often really where we start dipping our toes into the waters of using reusable. And for example, in my home, I don't use disposable wipes any longer to keep my home. I use just the toweling cloths, and I use water, a bit of alcohol, and sometimes a couple of drops of tea tree oil, and I've got my own wipes. And I don't have to pay for disposable wipes, and I know I can use them again and again. And they really do clean much better and much easier than you would use with disposable wipes. So give this a try with your baby, and this is a place where you start, and then you realize that you can get on top of the washing, and then you can start looking at your modern cloth nappies as well. So when we look at bottom creams, I just always suggest that it is good to put a bottom cream on a baby. There's Bepanthen as an everyday, lots of people know pseudo cream. And really, for me, it's the fact that if your baby is sleeping and makes a poo and you don't either realize it or don't want to wake the baby to change the nappy, we just want to have something protecting on the baby itself. And of course, if you do have a rash, it's really important to bring this up with somebody, because there are, for example, Carmoseptin that can be used, but there might be other situations if your baby, for example, has a thrush and we need to try and resolve that. So if you have a nappy rash, approach somebody like your maternal child health nurse, your doctor, or somebody who knows about babies, and ask them what specifically you can use. But most of the time, it's just a barrier cream to make sure that your baby doesn't sit in poo that they have passed. So I really hope that that's given you some thoughts on what to do as far as nappies are concerned. And once you find what works for you, that's what you stick with. And that is what will work best for the entire family.